Okay.
Oh, lucky you.
Nothing's on.
I would like to call to order the February 7th, 2022 Long Hill Township Board of Education meeting. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Long Hill Township Board of Education was given as required by the Open Public Meeting Act as follows. Notice was sent to the Echo, Sentinel, and Daily Record on September 21st, 2021. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the first floor entrance of the School District Administration Building in Gillette, New Jersey, and notices were filed with the Township Clerk. And notices were also mailed to all persons who have requested individual notice pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler,
Here.
Mrs. Daly,
Here.
Mr. DeJamos,
Here.
Mr. Grosskopf,
Here.
Mrs. McLennan,
Here.
Ms. Nyquist,
Here.
Ms. Ruvalo,
Here.
Mrs. Case.
Here.
8 members present.
Thank you. We'll start with any communications.
No.
We did get 2 communications today regarding the face mask policy. The board members did. We can start with board, committee, and liaison reports. I'm going to start with Katie.
Okay, last Tuesday, the Community Relations Committee met. We spent the bulk of our time discussing our website, reviewing different pages, different things we'd like to tweak here and there. It was a really good discussion with Dr. Mucci. And we also want to commend the staff at the schools who have really been submitting a lot of things to the Echoes, and there's just been a much bigger visual presence of what's going on in the schools, in the media, and via social media, et cetera. And it's wonderful to showcase everything that's going on in our schools. So that's been fantastic. The Long Hill Education Foundation has their next meeting on Wednesday, February 16th. It's at 8 p.m. It's via Zoom. They are also seeking grant applications from faculty and staff. They're collecting it. They sent out, a request for proposal to the teachers and staff. Dr. Mucci sent it out, and we have received some, but it is open until February 22nd. It's really exciting because this is, we've relaunched as a organization, and it's really exciting to see that we will be announcing our selection soon. Also, Force is back. We are having our first really big full-scale Force. We already have, the signups are until next Wednesday at 12 o'clock, so this Wednesday actually. And so far we've had 199 individual, unique students sign up for the programs. It's really exciting to see that we're back and better than ever. And we've got some really exciting new courses, and so hopefully we'll continue that success. And that's all.
Any questions for Katie?
Oh, actually, I have one other thing. I wanted to give a shout out to Jack Hartnett, because he spent a lot of time with Beth Conlon, our president, to work on our website, and also to the link between the Force website and the district. He spent a lot of time and was super helpful, so thank you to Jack.
Great. Melissa?
All right, as for the CPAG, which stands for Special Education Parent Advisory Group, they had, the group held their meeting on January 12th of 2020, and that was done virtually. And that addressed transitioning into preschool, into the preschool special education community in Long Hill School District. The next meeting will be held on February 23rd, 2022, and that will address, again, I'm sorry, I think I misquoted the last one. The January 12th meeting just addressed more of the updates as far as the special education community in the school district. And the next meeting, which is going to be held on February 23rd, it's also via Zoom. And you could find that link You could either email me at mrublo@longhill.org, or you can look on our school website. And the topic of the February 23rd meeting is preschool at Long Hill School District. And this is going to be a series of programming because the February 23rd meeting, after dealing with preschool, the March 23rd meeting, tentatively scheduled for March 23rd, will address transitioning from preschool to kindergarten and then elementary to middle school. And tentatively scheduled for May 5th is another virtual meeting, which will address transitioning from middle school to the Watchung Hills High School. And that will be a joint meeting with all the sending districts, which is Warren, Watchung, Greenbrook, and Watchung Hills.
Okay, any questions for Melissa? Alex?
Thank you very much, Madam President. The Buildings and Grounds Committee met on Friday afternoon after a challenging day, but I really do thank Dr. Mucci and the interim Buildings and Grounds Manager, Mark Brasina, for kind of scrambling and getting our meeting to occur before this one. We received really favorable reports that the capital projects conducted during 2021 have been closed out. That includes the Millington and Gillette partial roof replacement and other exterior work. That project actually expanded into other kind of HVAC-related projects that have also wrapped up. The Millington window repairs, this is kind of a multi-phase project that was also recently completed, but additional phases are being planned in the future. Another incredibly positive development, thanks to Dr. Mucci and her staff, in expanding the playground equipment which has been installed, and as Ms. McLennan commented, well covered in our community newspaper. It was a very well-received and exciting project for everyone. This is all positive stuff that's happening at a very difficult time in the economy, where you have much more expensive equipment. One example that was offered to us, door replacements, for example. There's a 4 or 5 month lead time on just getting the materials that you need to get the stuff done. Notwithstanding that, we have ambitious projects planned in the near future for the 2022 summer kind of period. I'm not going to steal Dan's thunder in probably going over those in greater detail. But I did want to speak to the fact that, we are forward-looking. There are a number of other initiatives that are being undertaken in order to ensure that the investments that we're making in maintaining our property and our buildings also have the correct maintenance guide and playbook that needs to be followed going forward. So, for example, there's a meeting that's going to be planned in the near future between the administration and our various electrical and vendors, so that we can do a pretty comprehensive assessment of them, understand what kind of repairs need to be made, and also have the proper maintenance schedule in place in order to keep that up. So recent kind of smaller projects, but significant nonetheless. At Central, there was a first floor teacher's laboratory that was repaired. There was a lighting issue at Central that was also addressed based on a neighbor complaint. There are anticipated repairs that I think that are going to be planned for an asphalt area for Gillette. There is a fairly dire need to invest in our fleet, our maintenance vehicles, and that comes at a very difficult time with respect to the global supply chain and the availability of these vehicles that we need. But these are all things that we're trying to plan for conservatively and make sure that we take the right steps now to ensure that we have those services available, but also make sure that we are properly staffed, tooled, and equipped to kind of deal with the things that we need to in the future. So there was some discussion that we had related to the 5-year long-range facilities plan and capital budget that will probably be presented in more elaborate presentations in the near future. We needed to reschedule at the beginning of each calendar year when we have the board transition. We like to take the committee on walking tours of each one of the schools so that we have that. Unfortunately, we had to reschedule that from Friday, but we hope to do it soon. And if any other board member wants to join us, so long as we kind of remain within, a respectable number that doesn't require some sort of public advertising, I do open that up to anyone else who wants to participate in that, and I'm sure Mr. Persina would indulge you in that same tour. I think it's great to have an extra set of eyes. I know when Ann and I did it last year, it was a very eye-opening experience, but it also led to a number of different immediate, visible, and tangible repairs that we made. So that is, I've taken more than my 2 minutes, but thank you for the time.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions for Alex? Okay, Tom?
Very lengthy, so let me start with this. The planning board is having a meeting tomorrow. Nothing more to report as of this time. Thank you for your time.
I cede my time to the good man.
Okay. Thank you. Ann?
I think mine is lengthy, but we'll see how we do. The PTO is continuing with planning for grade level events, including the virtual author visits, book fairs, cultural arts assemblies. They're working on setting up the PTO-sponsored summer band camp, and also the membership toolkit and new online platform will be available soon, so there'll be information about that forthcoming. On Wednesday, February 2nd, the Student Achievement Committee and Curriculum Committee met. Myself, Dr. Mucci, Dr. Jones, Kim Case, Tom Groskoff, and Katie McLennan were present. We had a demonstration of the Rubicon Atlas system, which is access via the district website, and basically you can get access to the course descriptions, the unit calendar, scope and sequence of courses for all the classes in the district. So if you want to, just peruse some time and see what's being taught in the classroom, that's a good informational source. We had a very thorough conversation about overcrowding at Gillette School, which I think is a topic that has come up, but Gillette is very tight at this point. So the district is looking at possible solutions for next year and then beyond. The current situation, space is tight. The gym and multi-purpose room has been frequently, used half to accommodate for other needs. The faculty room has been converted to a BSI room for basic skills instruction, and the current faculty room is incredibly small, which restricts conversation that our faculty can have with one another. And also, I think, when you think of the demands of a school day, a faculty room is a place to step out and have a moment, to relax. So it may seem, it's an important thing to have. The library space was cut in half to make additional classroom space. The stage is being utilized for storage, and the art room and the music and library share the space. So these are concerns we knew were coming, but the district is looking at solutions for next year. There was a discussion briefly about a grade reconfiguration, which was considered, but it didn't seem to be an ideal solution, in the discussion. So what the administration is discussing is looking at moving 2 preschool classrooms to Millington. And with that in mind, it would be for next year. There are open classrooms next door to each other that would be appropriate. There's a discussion of creating a separate play area, so these little ones aren't on the playgrounds with the big kids. There's some benefits to the program being in the same building as special services, and it would give the board and the district a chance to conduct a needs assessment of the buildings and the space and make decisions regarding not only the future of the program, but the needs for Gillette School and for our facilities. So that was an interesting, I think, and very important discussion that we had. We talked about the curriculum and textbook adoption process, which I'll just say is very thorough, and if anyone wants, an update on it, it's detailed in the minutes, but it goes through processes including faculty review. There's 2 current curriculum projects underway. They're looking to adopt a new K-4 science program. So they're looking at 2 programs, Amplify Science, where Houghton Mifflin Harcourt National Science Dimensions. Amplify is what they're using in grades 5 through 8. So, there would be consistency there if they went with that, but they're still vetting the 2 programs to see which one is more appropriate for our program. And the K-5 language arts is looking at integrating more grammar lessons with the goal of improved writing instruction. We discussed the Summer Institute, which we had initiated last year in response to, the COVID learning, and that is looking at something to begin June 27th and end July 14th. And there'll be more information about that as we come closer to summer. We had an update on the Gifted and Talented program at the middle school. The Central Middle School's team of, they sent 4 students to the virtual Model UN, and the 2 teams came away with the top prizes for outstanding delegation and for best delegation. So that was pretty impressive, their first year competing. And there's going to be some debate and a workshop in the arts opportunity at Central School. Gillette and Millington participated in a Do You Want to Build a Snowman sort of STEAM creative activity, and there's something called the Gillette and Millington Superhero Competition that people will be hearing more about. Items for the good of the order / next meeting, we're looking at budget-related items, personnel and program changes or suggestions that are student achievement related as we move into budget talks. And I will also give the finance report for Matt since he's not here today. So there were 2 finance meetings. On January 21st, we had a meeting where we discussed pay to play. There's different levels of contributions by the Board of Ed being discussed. Also a discussion of how to help those that qualify for the reduced milk program, with the finances for the pay to play. In terms of budget update at that January meeting, we discussed how possibly the chair of Finance Committee and other Finance Committee members will start presenting parts of the budget with Dan as we come into the budget presentations. They're using very conservative state aid numbers to create the budget, considering how to expand and create a before and after care program for the future that might be operated by the Board of Education, which would result in some consistency for the students, in terms of staff and also a possible revenue source for the district. And over 80% of our budget is contractually guaranteed through the benefits and the salaries of staff. And that's something just to hear as we move into budget talks. It can't be changed. It's negotiated, it's set in place. And so that's just something that we like to repeat for the public to know that that part of the budget is already predetermined. At our February 2nd meeting, Matt and I reviewed and approved the bills that are in today's agenda. We had discussions with the 3 principals at Gillette, Central, and Millington to give feedback on the budget process and the requests that they were making for the schools. This was a really interesting, I think a new thing maybe that we're doing at Finance, to just have those conversations where the board committee and then the administrative committees are, I think earlier on in the process, getting to, just hear what the priorities are and what the expectations are coming up. Let's go through here. So there's ESSER funds are being used to help fund some programs. I believe we'll notice today there are some amendments on
Correct.
the agenda. That's because Dan and the administration have been meeting together to make sure that those ESSER funds are being utilized to the absolute best benefit of the district. So there may have been a previous thought, okay, the money is going to be used in this way, but then in just brainstorming and really saying, are we utilizing the money in the best way? There's been some changes and some wonderful ideas that have come out, including the science program we're discussing and some other one-time fees that are good for the district to be using to address our needs and use these funds. The budget is in great shape. I think that it's almost done where some districts are starting. We're nearing completion. There's a note here, we're still considering pay-to-play contributions in this budget and what that will look like. And then the Finance Committee is also looking at it over time. How can we address that issue? So it may not all be addressed in 1 year, but there is a plan for it. And we're looking to use the services of Edovate? Advocate, yes, there's a typo here, to manage the process of our bidding of our maintenance contracts. And one big change would be to bring in-house possibly a buildings and grounds manager, and also specialty managers such as a licensed plumber or an electrician in HVAC, which would offset some of our savings when we're going out for repairs with these issues. And that was my updates.
Any questions for Ann?
How many pre-K classes do we have?
We're running 3 right now. There's a 3s class, a 4s class, and then I believe there's a
Multi-age.
multi-age class, which would be special education. There's special education in all the program and regular ed in some as well, but
Is
Ann
there a
probably
rea-
knows more.
Is there a reason why you wouldn't move the 3 of them? I can think of just the 4 pre-K one only here.
Yes, so as the question was, when we're looking at the configuration, how do you make a choice? And while we're still finalizing ways that we can alleviate some of the crowding at Gillette, there are important parts of the program which require inclusion or pushing in to a particular class. So some classes in Gillette wouldn't move because if we moved them, we wouldn't have a class where they could experience general education lessons with their peers.
Okay.
So student needs and the IEP and what classes they might have to participate in can also put some restrictions on what classes we could move if we change them to another building.
No, I'm just talking about the pre-K.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
what I'm talking about,
Okay.
yep.
Okay. Melissa?
I remember pre-COVID, this was something that we were dealing with too, with
Yeah.
the crowding in Gillette. And then post-COVID, I guess our enrollment went down a little bit, so, well, during COVID, I should say. Our enrollment went down a little bit. Are any of these restrictions or crowding due to any of the guidelines that we have in place for social distancing? Or is this regardless of those guidelines that we're following that we have a crowding issue?
That's a great question. So no, it's not related to social distancing, but the board did make a decision to also make the class sizes smaller, and that was an important value. And I think it had educational value when the board made the decision, not just related to COVID. So we're supporting the work of the board, especially at that pre-K 1 level, to keep smaller class sizes where able. So your recollection and reporting is correct. When we had to do the social distancing and collapse the cohorts, we needed to add an additional kindergarten class, which is, I think, what you're referencing. And the board made a decision, which I think was a great one, to keep that kindergarten class regardless of social distancing guidelines so that we could have smaller class sizes in kindergarten. And that's our hope to continue moving forward. You know, big difference between those classes in that 17 to 19 range as opposed to, 20 to 25, 26.
Okay. Karen, Danielle, I'm sorry. Any reports?
Oh, I have no reports.
Okay. Karen?
Okay, excuse me. There was a meeting for the Morris County Ed Services Commission, and at that meeting, we approved the new rates, which I confirmed our business office has. We also approved the new tuition for their school, and it was a pretty large increase. But even with that, we had a survey, the superintendent had done a survey of 19 schools in Essex, Passaic, Morris, and Somerset, and their school is the third from the lowest. Some of the higher ones above it are schools that we use. Now, I know that it all depends on the child's needs, but I do hope that we keep looking at that school, their schools, because it's good. We actually do have a real signed memorandum of agreement, and salary guides are being reviewed, so we're slowly inching towards an end. But it's going to be a very short end because come December, believe it or not, this is 2 years in the making. I got to start doing the next. They can talk about the next one. So it's going to be a very tough time. Okay, governance. We're having our first meeting on February 16th. It'll be virtual. And prior to that, though, there's just been a little bit of work. Dr. Mucci and Mrs. Mickles have put together virtually all of the elements in what we'll call a governance manual, except for a section entitled norms, which are the principles by which we would operate, the committees would operate, the way we would operate as a board, et cetera. So there's 2 samples that we have now. So we'll be discussing that, hopefully come up with a set of norms that can then be reviewed by the board and then hopefully move to adoption. The other thing is, I don't know if anybody else, I listened to Marta's presentation from the conference on governance. Okay, so I got a copy of her presentation, and I talked to Charlene, and she would be, because what I'm looking at is the training. For us to maintain our certification, we need a certain number of cumulative hours over a 3-year period. And in 2020, we gained a lot of hours because we conducted our own superintendent search. But that is going to be dropping off. So we have to maintain it. Right now, we did get ethics training. We get associated with our board retreat. We get credit, but we need other stuff. So I was looking at governance training and utilizing the workbook from the textbook and the workbook. And Charlene said she'd be willing to work with us on. Then comes policy. You see that we had there were job descriptions that are part of the policy book. I literally handed Dr. Mucci 43 job descriptions that were subsequently handed out to the administrators, and they're reviewing them. After they're reviewed and we get them back, they'll go to the personnel committee, and then they'll come to the board, and we'll get those all cleaned up and current. You see that there are policies on the agenda. Several of them obviously are updated to handle our new technology. You know, video is out and all that, so it can handle the live streaming, and it deals with retention cycle and access, et cetera. And our next meeting is going to be on the 24th. Typically, policy would meet the 3rd Thursday of the month, but the 17th is a no-school day. So we're going to meet on the 24th. And Dr. Mucci will address the masking policy.
Okay. Any questions for Karen?
I just wanted to acknowledge and thank you for getting everything squared away for the streaming and having it all done. And thank you.
Okay, great. I just have a couple. I'm going to do Matt's technology committee report. So I'm just going to summarize it. So basically, there have been some updates to the website, the policy table of contents, the COVID dashboard. There looks like there's going to be some work on a new Friday flyer. The updated BOE information is there, and then as Katie mentioned, the Long Hill Ed Foundation, there was work done with them. Internal only web services, so custom backend tools for the department, so there's been some work there, and developed and managed the repair process for the Chromebooks. There was discussion on the Chromebook lifecycle progress, so that's something that needs to be I won't say formalized, but there needs to be a template and a plan for moving forward on that. Kindergarten registration looks like it's going to be open March 1st through the 4th. So only for a couple of days? Okay.
We had, we started a pre-registration process this year, and everyone can sign up for appointments, so it allowed us to streamline it a bit.
Oh, got it. Okay. There we go. Physical security, a camera system upgrade. There was a walk around with the vendor to finalize the layout and discuss details of server deployments. Emergency connectivity fund. There's been a PO sent out on that and is being processed. And then the online payment system, Pay Schools, has been rolled out. And I think that's a very exciting development for us technology-wise, just jumping into 2022.
Moms that don't like writing checks are very, very grateful.
Any questions on technology? And I don't know who else. Danielle, were you on that?
Yes,
So
I was.
maybe if there's any questions? No? Okay. For my end, negotiations met on the 31st. We will be negotiating, geez.
Oh, actually, can I interrupt really quickly?
Okay.
I wanted to acknowledge the COVID dashboard.
Okay.
That was incredible piece on the website. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
But the work that was done on that, it's very clear. It looks fantastic, and it answers any questions that you could have. You just, the date, it tells you the range, it shows you how much, to me, the history, it shows you how many people have it at a certain time. It's awesome. So thank you. Thank you to the technology team. Wanted to make that.
It gives me a chance to say negotiations correctly. So we met on the 31st, so myself, Alex, and Tom met with Dr. Mucci. We will be working on the administrator's contract this year. We will be meeting with them on February 9th. And that is it for me, so we can go to superintendent's report.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I want to say first that it has been a pleasure working with the new board committees. Again, sincere appreciation for the detailed reports that you give each month. And I'm especially excited for our first round of committee meetings for the new year and all of the great work that's underway. So I thank the board for their support and their diligence in that area. It's so helpful in keeping us focused on our goals. We're glad to be back here in person tonight, and we want to thank the Township Committee and the manager for their continued hospitality and support in using this space. Our IT department and the municipality's IT team have been working together to bring some nice changes to the community regarding our board meetings, starting with tonight's board meeting. All of our Board of Education meetings will be live streamed to our district YouTube channel, and thereafter meetings will be accessible through our Board of Education webpage. On behalf of the faculty and administration and the business office, we would like to thank Watchung Hills Regional High School for their support in instituting a lunch program for students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. The lunches are created at the high school cafeteria by Pomptonian Food Services. They courier them to us. They've been wonderful partners. The quality of the meals have been outstanding. And right now we're serving 33 meals a day with that partnership. And we have as many as up to 55 or so that would be eligible. So we're noticing that the program is growing as the word gets out, and we continue to communicate with families who are eligible. So we'd like to thank the high school for that wonderful partnership. Also, on Friday and Thursday of last week, a team of 7 teachers, 2 administrators, and 2 parents attended the youth entrepreneurship training. And we are all very enthusiastic about the training, and we're looking forward to integrating youth entrepreneurship in the Long Hill schools in a variety of ways, including additional curriculum options for our students integrated into their existing classes, an after-school program, and an expansion of the Summer Institute to include youth entrepreneurship. Among the agenda items that the board is considering tonight, there is a few that I'd like to make special note of. Number 22 is a very special thank you to Lillian Ralston, who has selflessly served the district for over 44 years. She will be deeply missed. Yes, she will be deeply missed at Millington and Central Schools. Ms. Ralston is busy teaching a dog obedience class right now down the road at the community center. So she wasn't able to join us here this evening to be acknowledged, but we got on her calendar for June. And we will be acknowledging her along with the other retirees and individuals who have achieved milestones in Long Hill at our June meeting. Number 34, I just want to reiterate again that the administration and faculty are looking forward to the Summer Institute this year. The program dates are noted in the resolution. Students who qualify for the program will be notified in the coming weeks, and the district is also planning to include some learning opportunities such as youth entrepreneurship for all students who are interested. We did receive a grant for that program as well, which will allow us to fund a summer institute class so that we could offer it to families free of charge. I would like to thank Ms. Backer for completing the anti-bullying assessment, which is referenced in motion number 40. We are proud of the initiatives that our faculty and administration have undertaken to create nurturing and supportive learning environments. We also recognize and appreciate that if it were not for the work of our families for consistently instilling values of respect and empathy in our children, our jobs would be harder in this regard. But the parents who do such an exceptional job in reinforcing these important messages of kindness are the reasons that we are able to report such exceptional scores in this area. A brief update on our Test to Stay program. Longview Testing Company is experiencing a labor shortage, and they are not able to staff our Test to Stay program as they previously committed to do. Therefore, they will agree to train individuals on our staff to administer the program. It could be a school nurse or an administrator, but it would have to be someone in our own district. We are working through that process now. We're getting people trained. I probably will get trained myself to be able to administer the test, whatever we need to do to get it up and running. But I do want to make note that that's going to delay the implementation a little bit because we thought that they were going to be sending us people who could do the test, and now we have to train people to be able to do the program. Recently, as Ms. Nyquist reported, the Policy Committee reviewed Policy 5140-10 on face coverings. And hot off the presses this afternoon, we have an update on that. I'm so excited that the governor decided to give us information before our board meeting. You must have known that Long Hill was meeting tonight. So this afternoon, Governor Murphy announced that the mask mandate for public schools will sunset on March 7th. So tonight, under new business, the board will discuss and consider the district's recommended course of action once this mandate expires. So as Ms. Nyquist pointed out, I just wanted to provide some background information that the board already has, but to put on the public record, information that you have reviewed prior to your conversation. All decisions that the board has made and the administration have made regarding COVID protocols take into factors several items. So what is the COVID activity level in the district? As Mrs. McLennan mentioned, we monitor that closely with the district dashboard. How successful are the mitigation efforts that we're putting in place? As we have heard from the facilities updates and finance, we've tried to do everything possible with ventilation and improving the ventilation in our classrooms. As you have reported out many times in terms of cleanliness, not just cleaning the schools, but using the electrostatic sprayers on our playground equipment outside. We feel as though we have done as much as we can do in the regards of ventilation and keeping the schools as clean as possible. Also, we take into consideration vaccination rates, and most importantly, while we can do all of the technical pieces that I just mentioned, it's important that our faculty and staff feel safe in our schools and that we consider their input when we make decisions. Recently, we asked the faculty and staff their feelings about the impending changing of the mask mandates. So I just want to report out publicly that 75.4% of our faculty and staff who answered the survey, which was a large representative group, there were only a few who did not complete the survey, said that they would feel comfortable teaching without the masks anytime after March the 1st, kind of through that flu season and looking at when this is going to sunset. 15.5% were in favor of keeping the mask mandate if our COVID activity levels were in the high or very high range. 9% of respondents said keep the mask mandate until the end of the school year. So that's a little bit of an insight into our faculty and staff. Secondly, we think about our vaccination rates. At Gillette School, understanding that there's a large percentage of the population at Gillette School who are not age eligible for vaccines. 40% of the Gillette School population is vaccinated, 60% at Millington, and 67.2% at Central. Now for the most exciting news whenever we think about what's going on with COVID. Since January 15th, and if you asked me on December 27th if I would be able to say this, I didn't know what it was going to look like. But since January 15th, we have seen a sharp and sustained decrease in the number of COVID cases. In the week of January 15th, we had 46 cases in 1 week at Gillette. In that same week, 8 at Millington and 4 at Central. Fast forward to just last week, where we only had 2 cases in the district, none at Central, 1 at Millington, and 1 at Gillette. So it is up to the board to make a determination about what to do with this policy and to discuss how we should go moving forward. And it's my pleasure to present this information to you. And if you have any other questions for me, just let me know, and I'm happy to answer those. And I thank you for considering this. I also thank the board for being thoughtful and taking time to do this publicly. It means so much to me, to the administrative team, and to the faculty that we're proactively looking at this and allowing everybody time to plan for what the board decides. It's thoughtful and deliberate and respectful and greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Mucci?
I have a question. I don't know if this information is available. I'm assuming yes, because the school nurses, I think, track the positive cases. From the COVID dashboard, I don't have it in front of me, but from the amount of positive cases that we've seen in the past 90 days for children, I'm curious what that percentage is. I mean, I think natural immunity kind of goes into play. If we have a total of 61% of students that are vaccinated, how many are in the past 90 days that were positive for COVID? I'm just curious, do we have that information?
How many in the past 9 days, did you say?
90.
Oh, 90 days. So in other words, can we make inferences about natural immunity
Yes.
affecting? That's a great question. I wouldn't be able to answer that off the top of my head, but I certainly could get information from the nurses. But I think one inference I could say with fairness, which is an inference based on just what I know, is that given what we're seeing following a high level of COVID activity, is that there is an immunity that seems to be contributing, as well as vaccinations and other factors, to this decrease in cases. So I think that's a fair supposition to make. But in terms of the details, I'd have to take some time and break down and get that answer for you.
Okay. Thank you.
In terms of a percentage, which is what you were asking for, right?
Right. And well, off the top of my head, I did look at that. It was 296 students were positive from what I saw on the dashboard.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I mean, how many students we have? 841?
829?
yeah.
So that's a large percentage.
So that's like a third.
Just
Yeah.
look at Dan, he can give us that
So
number.
that's about a third that have,
Yeah.
Well, and you
natural
said that
immunity.
that 1 week there were 43 cases at Gillette,
Yeah, just in 1 week.
which,
That's a quarter of the students.
Yeah.
yes, but when you understand that many of them may not be unvaccinated, but now have that immunity from being sick. I mean, it's unfortunate they were sick, but it does have a benefit for them
Right.
in these weeks.
What you're
Yeah.
falsely, no,
Oh, yeah.
you're using it, there is natural overlap
Yeah.
between those two.
Correct, yeah.
So
Of
you
course.
can't assume they're independent numbers.
Yeah, there may be some vaccinated who,
Right.
yeah.
Right, I mean,
Absolutely.
there's breakthrough cases,
My little
yeah.
peanut at Gillette was COVID positive and fully vaccinated. So that was a joy that we experienced.
Okay, I have a question, Dr. Mucci. So
Yes.
now, because we have guidance that March 7th is the date,
Yes.
what exactly does the board have to walk away from today, given that we're meeting again on March 7th? So I guess can you just let us know, what exactly do we have to provide today to move forward?
If the board's comfortable, we would be appreciative as a faculty and administration if we could have guidance from you about what you would like the schools to look like on March 8th with regard to this policy. So March 8th is a day where if the board takes no action tonight, but considers, we've seen this policy and we're going to be satisfied that when our policy, sorry, I'll backtrack. Our policy is written such that when the mask mandate sunsets, our policy on face masks also concludes. So it says as soon as the executive order is over, our policy is done. If the board agrees with that and believes that on March 8th we should do the same thing, the board takes no action tonight. There may be some conversation on the board level later in the meeting where any board member might put forward a motion in which we could amend our existing policy in any one of a variety of ways that reflects the board's collective feeling about whether masks should be continued under some circumstances, and identify what those circumstances are. I would say the only thing that's up in the air, well, not that, there's so many, right? But the main thing that's up in the air that we don't know now is, right now, if we're all wearing masks and one of us has COVID and we're near another one, but we both wear our masks, no one needs to be excluded from school. The Department of Health has to interpret what happens when this face mask mandate goes away. And if they are urging districts to still contact trace under the guidelines that we currently have, that would mean that more students could likely be exposed, and then symptomatic or not, they might have to be excluded from school. Because right now, when someone's wearing a mask and they're exposed or they're vaccinated with a mask, it's much less likely that they would need to be held out of school and quarantined. So we don't really know how those Department of Health regulations are going to change.
Okay, thank you. Okay, interim business administrators update.
Good evening. Tonight on our agenda, we have our bill list for February, our December 22 financials. We have facility uses, donations, disposal of obsolete textbooks, which are torn, worn, old, ripped pages, binders broken. Resolutions 10, 12, 13, and 14 are amendments to our ESSER grant, our ARP grant, and our Title I. And we've really brainstormed collectively, our admin team, because a lot of these grants were done 8 months ago, 10 months ago, 14 months ago. And we just pivoted and paused a second to say everything 12 to 15 to 18 months ago, do we need that today? And we found in a lot of areas, we're making a lot of modifications to the grants. And we're really looking not to supplant, but to supplement the items that we currently have in our district. We don't want to take X dollars to do Y, and then in the following year, we don't have that money again because we don't have the grant. So we're looking to supplant as opposed to supplement. We are also approving Advocate, as was stated in our finance report, and that is the same company you used 5 years ago for your custodial service contract, which is it's over $1 million contract. And we're looking at different ways to try to carve that contract out to make it more advantageous to the school district, potentially looking at pulling in some maintenance people, hiring them as in-house people as opposed to contracting out. So we're looking at all of that. Right now, the workforce and the job force, we're overpaying for everything. So as of July 1st, our 5-year contract is expiring. We're starting that bid process now for custodial services, and we will go with custodial and maintenance. And there'll be provisions in that contract that we could reduce down at any time we'd like with a 30-day notice. So that is very, very important. Resolution 11 is approving our semi-Medicaid initiative, and that's a waiver, and that's consistent with what we've done in the past here at Long Hill. And the state allows you, if there's less than 40 special ed semi-Medicaid students, that we can in fact waive our revenue. It is cost prohibitive. The state has declared 40 almost as your break even. If you have 8 or 10 or 12, the paperwork to do this, if you take the labor hours, is equal to or greater than the revenue you'll be getting. So that's why you'll see, or what you have done in the past, you would waive that. And 40 is basically the magic number to make it cost prohibitive or not cost prohibitive. Our budget is moving along. Our finance committee has, we have met twice on the budget. We've pulled in all of the stakeholders, special ed, maintenance, custodial, principals of all the schools, basically anyone that has any ideas on how we could carve this budget out. Our goal is a 2% tax levy cap. The top priorities is the pay-to-play, is the free and reduced lunch program that was already previously stated. We started at 14 students, we're up to 33 students in 8 days. So as people are hearing about it, it's gaining traction once again. Watchung Hill is very, very, very cooperative. Their employees actually driving the lunches on a daily basis to Gillette. So that's just cooperation. It's, you know, and it's a good thing. I mean, we have anything at the schools that they would ever need, using our facilities for a state test, a police test. Our relationship now, we just pick up the phone. If we could help you, we're going to help you. So that's a good thing. The rollout for, I call it the pay-to-play, the rollout for the parent software to start paying a lot of fees online is getting piloted by Trevor, so we're moving along there. Our capital outlay, as discussed by Alex, we're looking at $1 million capital outlay for 22-23 school year. Sounds like a lot of money. It doesn't buy you that much. It's big ticket items that we're looking to do would be the Millington parking lot, which if you drive it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You could lose an infant in one of the potholes. We have the Gillette School with the little playground, so we would do those two parking lots. We're looking to put up permanent sheds at each facility, 10 by 20 or 15 by 30 on a concrete pad, more of a building as opposed to a shed that could blow away at any time, or snow, and reptiles in these sheds now, so we're really looking to make it a storage shed for our teaching staff. Waterproofing in the front of Gillette. If you come in next time and you look over the white entranceway, you'll see a lot of the bricks and some water seepage coming in. It's waterproofing that we would have done, brick pointing at all 3 schools. As we spoke of vehicles, you just can't get a vehicle, and we need 3. So we're trying to see if we can maybe buy one, and it's a state contract, so they've negotiated this price prior to all of this chip nonsense. So the price that we'll be paying for those vehicles already has been stated for the past 14 months. So I don't want you to think we'd be overpaying for that vehicle. We pay the state contract price. We're looking to buy 1 this year, 2 next year to really upgrade our fleet. Right now, I think they're 2012 vehicles, and if you look at them, I want them clearly identified, Long Hill Township Board of Education. So if you're around town, you know there are vehicles. If something happens, you know there are vehicles. If you see a good thing, you'll know there are vehicles. So I think that's very, very important. A fire alarm system at Millington, 2 bathrooms, faculty bathrooms in 2 of the 3 schools, and you're right about $1 million. So those projects that we spoke about are not big projects that you're going to see a lot of things going on, but they must get done. A lot of infrastructure stuff must get done. And I think, you know, budget-wise, we're in real good shape, and I think moving forward, you know, 23, 24, 24, 25 is just going to get a little tighter. We have a lot of fixed costs that are 80% of our budget between the contracts, the health benefits, the teacher salaries, garbage. You know, there's just a lot of those contracts that we have no say over, and we're talking about, you know, 20% of 20 million. So you're still talking about $4 million, but a lot of the crux of it is already embedded into your budget. And I can't speak highly enough of our admin team. They've come in on, you know, they've pivoted. We looked at our ESSER and funded programs, then we came into budget current year, budget 22-23, budget 23-24 to see, you know, guys, where are we going? What are we doing? Let's look, you know, beyond 1 school year. So kudos to the entire admin team. Right now, preliminary, we're at a max of in pay-to-play for our athletic and all the pay-to-plays. Currently in our budget, we have a maximum payment of $200. So if the program is less than $200, you would pay the $112, the $118, the $87, but the max amount would be $200. The second piece of that puzzle is finance, and then we'll send it over to policy, is going to try to write up a policy for the free and reduced population on how does that look if they want to participate in these programs? What reduced fee will they pay? We're going to try to make it a percentage of, so this way, if the numbers fluctuate or the percentages fluctuate, we would just slide that scale up or down as opposed to a fixed cost. So we're looking to address something in that matter, so next year, next month, 3 years down the road, if it's 12% of the fee, they would pay 12% of $200, or whatever that percentage is. It's nice and easy, and it'll be a sliding scale, and we're pretty excited about it. We don't want to eliminate anyone or anybody from a sport, the play, anything because of economic conditions. So step one was getting it in place. Step two is making the rules and regulations that will follow that along the way. So thank you for your time. We're really excited about the budget. Thank the board for all their cooperation, being available, and listening to all those numbers on a bi-weekly basis. So I thank all of you.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
If you had to project, and I know it's always a moving target, the date we're going to get the state aid numbers,
The last Friday in February.
last Friday of February, okay. Would you see at the next board meeting, since you're so far ahead in the budget process, being like a presentation of the preliminary budget, or
I mean, we're at that point. There's specific dates. I think our meeting in March, our second meeting in March, is where we would officially approve a preliminary budget. I mean, I have all the documentation. We're using our school software, so we could produce it, and then we would just have to replay it a month later once we get our numbers. We anticipated a $25,000 loss in state aid based on some calculations internally that we think are going to happen. So if we get exact same numbers, we'll have an extra 25 to spend, so to speak, but we're looking at the very, very conservative approach, but we can in fact do something in March if you'd like.
one thing too, and I had written to Matt about this, looking at the tradesmen that we might bring in, would that be an opportunity to approach the town for about a shared service, like if we get an electrician,
Tradesman.
Yes, yes.
I didn't hear what you said.
I thought you were talking about the
Trades,
plumbers. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
Plumber,
to talk
yeah.
over you.
the plumber or
Yeah.
the electrician. I mean, I'm thinking that it might be an opportunity to go to look at a ship.
We've had, I think, 2 meetings with the township, and we've told them anything on our side of the ledger, it's one tax bucket. If you need it, it would be of use to you after, obviously, our times are done. And, we're looking to really get creative and start these individuals that are going to be licensed at maybe 6 o'clock in the morning and work a 6 to 2. So if they do have a business at 2 o'clock, they could do their ABC plumbing from 2 to the end of their day. And, we could get in and out of the school. We'll have a 3-hour slot in the mornings to do a lot of that work prior to students getting into school. And then you'd pivot that job, maybe some painting, some renovation of bathrooms. It's not just plumbing. It's going to be maintenance/plumbing, maintenance/HVAC, supervisor/electrician. So we're going to try to really create a skill set that covers all of the major trades that we've been spending probably $200,000 to $300,000 on a year.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Danielle?
I have a question. Maybe you all know this and I just don't, but in regards to the 3 vehicles, what do we use them for? Are they plows? What are they?
We use them for plows, we use them to transport equipment, we use them for our maintenance people to get from point A to point B on a daily basis, and they're used transport technology. We use them just about for everything in the district.
Oh, okay.
And the tough thing is, it's a third-party contractor, so that whole ownership component is a little different. If you're an employee of the district, you're coming in every day. Some other districts have 10-year-old vehicles that look brand new, and when you're a rental, it's almost as if you rent a car, you hit the curb, you hit the curb.
Yeah.
And we're looking to really make these vehicles last, have some logs, do an inspection when you're done with it every day, really implement policies and procedures to extend the useful life and the quality of that vehicle.
Okay,
Just
thank
to
you.
Piggyback off of that, one of the vehicles that was discussed was more of like a delivery van type
Yes,
vehicle.
like a panel
which-
truck.
Which we don't have, but which would be a much more useful,
Right.
piece of equipment for us to have, rather than throw something in the back of the pickup truck, for example.
Right, I mean, to transport the lunches, we really don't have a covered vehicle to put the lunch bags in. So if it's a misty day like today, they'd have to be on the front seat, and stacked up because we have them in hot bags. So just a simple transport of lunches from Watchung Hills here, we really don't have a vehicle to do something like that.
Okay.
Dan, can you expound on, I know there was conversation about shared services with the township regarding to plowing our parking lots.
Yes,
snow.
they were very cooperative, of which anytime we feel that we need help, we would call. They may not be able to get there that same afternoon, but prior to the school the next day, they would get someone in here and really help us move snow. Our biggest issue is in snow totals of 8 to 12 to 15 inches. We could push it, but we can't lift it, put it over the fence. You'll see 10 or 12 parking lots being covered by snow that we don't have the capability with a backhoe or a plow, of which very, very open. Just give us a call, let us know early. We purchase salt that's stored over there. We could bring our vehicles over to their garage and depot and hose them all off. We could get rid of a lot of our pallets, our old electrical equipment. So we're making strides in small steps. Hopefully with our professional services, we could expand that shared service agreement.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Dan, and Dr. Mucci for working diligently to change the relationship with the township, because we all live here, and we're all, well, I'm not sure about you two, but all the people who send children here live here, and it's one family,
Right.
regardless of where you work. So thank you both for having made that a better relationship.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment that I've been seeing in the media that there's been a lot of concern about what's happening with the aid, and I'm really, the COVID aid, and what I think, not in our town, in overall, there's been stuff on social media, there's been articles written where people are like, where did that money go? And what I think is really something that you've made a point since you've been here is that in all of our agendas, there's ESSER funds. We vote on things, and you've said, I think in a previous meeting, that you're doing this so that in the future, when people are like, where did the money go? We have a record of that. And seeing that in other places, that's a concern, it's really, it feels like we're running a good show, like we're running a good program when we have it detailed and we have it down, and you have spearheaded that, and I want to commend you for that, so thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I mean, we're going to sing your praises again, because when you said the figure that you had for the pay-to-play, I mean, I don't have a child in the district, but I looked at if I remember correctly, was over $300 for, or $350 or $370. I mean, that you took, it was really a major, major concern, and you too, Dr. Mucci, and you answered the concern or responded to the concern. That's absolutely tremendous to me. I mean, that number blew me away. When you said that number, that blew me away. Totally blew me away.
Well, it's,
Thank you so
we have
much.
a good, it was a top priority from the board and Dr. Mucci, so, you make it work, and you look around and you make sure you come up with a number that seems to be palatable. We can't do it in one big swoop, but 200 seems to be, a sweet spot that's affordable yet reasonable.
And
And
that's
like I said-
200 per year, or
That would be 200 per
Per
sport.
sport,
I mean,
right?
basketball right now is 496, which is,
It's
if you-
amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's marvelous. And it wasn't brought up, but we all got a copy of Matt's minutes from the finance meeting. And there was, a lot of things that he said, which actually, when Dr. Mucci talks and when you talk, depicted out about not only the working relationship with the town, but what you've, I guess, built and cultivated with the staff and the administration. And I wrote Matt, I said, it almost brought tears to my eyes to see the glowing response that he's had, or he picked up on from everyone. And again, thank you both very, very much. It really is, it's a pleasure to come to this meeting. I mean, really, thank you.
you're very welcome.
Thank you.
You have it's a great team that's in place. I mean, I'm one of a team of 5 or 7 or 9, And, we're all pushing the same way, the same direction for common goal. And the kids are at the top of that list.
And that's what Matt said, is everybody sees, and it's just that you're all pulling together now, and that's just amazing. I mean, it really is wonderful.
I'm going to jump on Karen's point for a minute, because I do think, I only just joined the finance committee, but it's very clear that there's a flexibility and a communication going on among all parties. This is what we thought we would need. This is what we, like you said, 10 months ago, this is where we're at now. We will put in the work to get the students what they need. And that's the message that I think is permeating these conversations. Does there need to be an amendment? Yes. Is it to the benefit of the district? Yes. Okay, let's move forward, and a lot of brainstorming, I think, and working together. So it's that communication that I feel like people are being heard, but also that there's a lot of flexibility to work for the kids. I can't, the change with the lunches, which I know has come up in the past, and that we didn't have the facilities to provide lunches to the kids who needed them. So the fact that we're now working with the high school to provide lunch to that population is amazing. I think it's that, like, here's a problem, let's be creative in the solutions, and I echo what Karen said. I absolutely appreciate it.
Danielle, did
I'm
you
sorry,
have-
I had a question about the pay to play. When you said 200, was there a cap, like if you have 4 kids? 2, 4, 6, 8, no, okay. I just wanted to clarify.
Right. Our concern is, we have to bring this
Right.
down in steps. It's an
I understand.
expensive proposition. I mean, an away basketball game, a school bus is $495.
Right.
So we're looking to, if we could get it down another 50 or 75, now we're at 125. And then just put some policies in place for that other population, I think
Yeah.
we're making strides to a good goal.
For reference, I think basketball this year is $500.
correct.
And so now it'll be capped at 2. It's
Right.
not great, but it's significantly better.
For sure, yes.
If the student plays basketball and soccer, it's about $700, and then if you want courtesy busing, it's another $9, so you're at $1,600, which is a large amount of money.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Amazing.
Okay. Comments from the public on agenda items. At this point, the Board of Education welcomes comments from any member of the public on agenda items only. Please note that as per Board Policy 1120, a total of 15 minutes is allocated for public comments at any single board meeting. In order to provide residents the opportunity to comment, individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each at any particular board meeting. The board may extend these time limits at its discretion. Any questions should be directed to the board president, and depending upon the nature and complexity of the question, it may or may not be answered during the meeting by the administration. If so, the response would occur after this public portion of the meeting has concluded. Everyone has the freedom to speak, but please be advised that anything said in public may have legal ramifications, and there is no protection regarding statements made by the public.
Oh.
Just can you state your name and address before you begin?
Yeah, sure. Hi, thank you for meeting us here today. My name is Anna. I'm from Long Hill, from Gillette, and I'm mom of twins. I just want to talk that my kids, okay, sorry. Okay, so twins. One have cerebral palsy, one have heart disease. One second. So, I'm asking mask to be optional, even they have these diseases. That's my responsibility as a parent. With new CDC guideline, I would like that to be optional. Just because they suffer enough 2 years. Really, it's hard for them. I've been in doctors, and just because first year was so hard for them, they was pushed to wear a mask, right? And after I find out that I can have a note from a doctor or something, was too late because doctor said you was been through this for so long So now you need to take it forward. So for past 2 years, we learned a lot about mask, about COVID. We know what's mask protecting and which mask does not. So we all probably will agree that some masks are protecting, some not. Masks my kids wear, regular mask, they're not protecting. I know that for sure now. So why is they wearing them? Also, some people will agree and some probably not, but it's science approved that mask for kids not necessary. That's my kids got COVID from school. Even they was masking, like in December, right when school end. So we all was sick. And that's fine. Like Elizabeth with cerebral palsy, she had nothing. She basically was me and her. Just test was positive, but otherwise we was fine. Leah was sick for 1 day with heart disease. Everybody else, the worst was my husband, for example. But I don't know why. I have a baby. Baby was sick for 3 days, but otherwise it's all fine. So I just want to say that suicide here in America is probably 6.5 times higher. Vehicle, like motor vehicle, accidents and homicide are like 10 times higher than COVID. So why are we paying so much attention to this mask? Like you said, right? You want to see the smile. I want to see my kids smile again. So if it's possible, March 8th to be optional, because I cannot get the doctor note. I want to, but I can't. And I want my kids to learn at school, not fair. I remember myself, I was going to school, probably we're all old enough, you know how it was, like, I don't know if you had that, we was learning how to knit, how to cook at school, that's old school. So I want our kids to learn, not fair. They need to know all, but that's science. All science I know, biological, all this I know from school. I don't need to Google that to know what is flu and anything else. So I know I don't need to listen to CNN, Fox, ABC, whatever it is. I know that. We were studying at school. We learned that at school. If it's flu, it's not flu, we will deal with that. I mean, by the end of the day, I'm the one who is kids and treat them, if they're sick or they're not sick. That's it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. David Coletta from Gillette, Long Hill Road. First, I wanted to start off by saying thank you to Dr. Mucci and the board. I've said this to all of you via email and some of you privately. You have been in a position over the last 2 years that has been difficult. Many decisions were made at the state level that you as the board had to implement and defend, whether you agreed with it or not. Under the circumstances, I believe you made the best decisions you were allowed to make. Now that the governor has decided to lift the mask mandate, I hope you will support this effort and allow the parents to start making decisions that they believe are in the best interest for their children. For some, that may be their children continue wearing a mask, while others may believe masking is not in the best interest of their children. We have seen in recent days and weeks more public health officials start to come forward saying that it may be time to move forward without masks on children. As former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb stated over the weekend on Face the Nation, when prevalence is low, you have a lot of people who have been infected, who have some level of immunity for a period of time, and you have high vaccination rates. We can start to lean forward and take a little bit more risk and try to at least make sure that students in schools have some semblance of normalcy for this spring term. A lot of kids haven't really known a normal school day for 2 years now. So we need to try and lean forward aggressively to try to restore that and reclaim it when we can." End quote. Last night on NBC Nightly News, Dr. Jean Noble, UCSF Emergency Department COVID Response Director, stated, "We do not have high-quality evidence that children masking reduces the transmission of COVID." End quote. It is safe to say we do not have any good studies on masking because nothing like this has ever been done before. If something like this was natural and feasible on an ongoing basis, there would be more studies to support it. Do we have to say that masking should be banned? Certainly not. Do we need to ensure parents have the ability to make their own decisions? Absolutely yes. Now is the time to move forward, allow parents to make their own decision on whether to mask their child or not. Thank you again for all you have done over the last 2 years. It has been difficult for all of us, and I look forward to this next step that allows us to move ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, resolutions. Minutes. Katie, will you move in number 1?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruffalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Melissa, will you please move in financials number 2 through 18?
So moved.
Second.
Whoop, excuse me, 17.
17, yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
I'd like to make a comment on 19, on 9.
Okay.
It talks about further disposal of the obsolete books, and as we've talked about in the past, I want to make sure that other people who do read this realize that they are broken books where you are not book burners. So,
Correct. Yep.
Fair point.
Amen.
for that, I vote yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruffalo?
Yeah.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Alex, will you move in special education 18 through 19?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruffalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. For personnel, Tom, will you move in number 20 through 32?
So moved.
Second, and may I take an opportunity to echo what Dr. Mucci said. Congratulations to Mrs. Ralston. I actually have had the pleasure of not only knowing her through the schools, but also in this wonderful dog training class. And what I will say is, she treated me with such kindness in moments of pure dismay as my beautiful but unruly dog was disobeying, and I came unprepared without my collar, you know, the collar they wanted, and I was trying to teach a dog to go down. She had a trick for me, and the reason I mention it is because I think that in that situation I was more like a student and Ms. Ralston like a teacher, and just the way she made me feel comfortable going back to the class and welcomed. I imagine she's made many, many, many of our students and parents feel the same way. So thank you to her for all she's done.
She shows up as Central and Millington. When I first met her, she was at Gillette. She's actually passed through it all, and I think back and forth a couple of times. She's like Mrs. Sharp, an institution to this. And when I saw 44 years, I was amazed, and I really do have to thank her very, very much, because she was, whenever you saw her, she was smiling and had things in order. I mean, she ran a good office.
Roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruffalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. And will you move in curriculum 33 through 35?
So moved.
Second.
Oh.
Before
Roll
we-
call, please?
Before we vote, I have some comments on 36. Okay.
Wait, we're on 35, right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, we're on
Oh, I'm sorry.
33 to 35.
Yep.
My apologies.
1 second. Yep.
Second.
No. I meant 1 second.
Oh,
Till
good.
36, but go ahead. Yep.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Okay, policy. Danielle, will you move in 33 through 38?
So moved.
Oh, geez, 36. Thank you, Melissa,
Right.
through 38.
Sure, so moved.
Second.
Okay, Tom?
I was going to say, I
Thank you.
sense Tom has some comments.
Yes.
No, clairvoyant.
Yeah.
Actually, I just found one typo in 3570, but I would like to discuss 9326 is now the proper time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. In particular, in policy 9326, under broadcasting public meetings, it talks about the link shall be available on our website for 1 year. I would move that we could hold that for 2 or 3 years. For instance, if somebody is looking at this year's budget and we've cut off a year ago, then we don't know what was discussed the year before when comparing it to this year's budget. So even if it's 18 months, I'm okay with that. But 1 year, it's a nice number, but I would hope that we could extend it on our website. I know we have it permanently, but held within the district. I just think it would be easier for the public to be able to go back and take a look and see what was happening a year ago, rather than having it come off because of the time.
Well, let me ask. Karen, was there any discussion on the length of time?
Well, we went by the retention record requirement, and I think when I discussed it with you, if I'm not mistaken, on the website, they're really gonna have access all the time,
Trevor?
right?
Well, the website is just a link to YouTube, and currently YouTube will keep things indefinitely.
Yeah.
Right.
And if there's any concern about that, we can always download the videos and then we can archive them ourselves on our servers.
I thought it said that we are holding it after a year, within the district records. Is that not correct?
Sorry?
I believe it says here that meetings older than that would be held within district records. Is that not correct?
I'd have to look at it.
So what I'm requesting is that on our website, we leave an access to the link, even though you say, I'm not blaming you, Trevor, certainly, even though it is said that it'll be out there indefinitely. I would like, if you put it in writing that it'll be 1 year, then it will be eventually, somebody in the future will move it to 1 year. If we say now that it's 2 years, somebody would have to make the move to shorten it.
Well, this is our first reading, so at our next policy meeting,
Right.
at the end of the month, I think that's a good idea to raise.
Yep.
All right, so
So
we
that you
can,
raised it today, so we could address it at the policy meeting. So thank you for
right.
that.
So we can take that off, well, actually, no.
It's just a first reading.
Right, it's
It's
just the
just a
first
free,
reading.
yep.
This is the first reading.
But I want to, and one thing I didn't mention when I did my review, the non-resident regulation, Dr. Mucci had brought it up, believe it, there's a section there dealing with exchange students. And based upon her experience with handling and monitoring visas, it's a very complex and complicated job. So we just added CSA or designee. I mean, believe me or not, that's all we did. We didn't change the context. And this is because things are changing and changing demographic and, just changing in general. It's conceivable we could be getting exchange student. So just wanted to be she wanted to be ready. So I forgot to mention that, so.
Okay, so it sounds to me like this is a first reading for 9326E, and that the committee is going to take Tom's comments into consideration. And
Absolutely.
we will see this again on the agenda probably in March
Second
7th.
reading.
Yeah,
Right,
for
for the
second
second
reading.
reading, right.
Okay?
you
All right,
very
so roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes,
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Karen, will you please move in other items 39 through 42?
so moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Okay. Let's see, items for discussion. Do we have any old business? Okay, so new business. So we're currently in new business for discussion tonight is policy 5141.10, face coverings. Dr. Mucci set up the discussion in her superintendent report. I just want to say a couple of things. One of the most important function of the board is to set policy for the district. Our policy must comply with the law as well. Governor Murphy's announcement today stated that the public emergency will be extended for another 30 days, and part of this emergency's declaration required, with some exception, everyone in schools to wear masks. After 30 days and starting March 8th, the decision rests with each individual school district. I can say, I think of one of the many challenges that we have faced in this pandemic has been combating COVID-19 in real time. Scientists, doctors, nurses, elected officials, parents, and teachers, we have all been trying to make the best decisions with real-time data and information and need the flexibility to update decisions as we learn more. I say this because we as a board are allowed to address this policy and make any changes necessary to begin on March 8th, but this may not be the last time we address this issue. Know that we are making this decision, the decision that we make today, given the circumstances and conditions that currently surround us. But these circumstances and conditions may change, and we will do what we need to do at any future point if that is the case. So I thank our community in advance for its understanding. I'd like to allow time for each board member, if they would like to provide their feedback on this issue. I would ask that all your remarks are productive and that we are seeking input on this specific policy. Note that whatever we decide, the policy will not change before the second week in March. Until then, this policy will remain in effect as per executive order, which is the law. And maybe you're going to start with Karen.
Well, I also want to ask a question. So it sunsets and the Board of Health comes out with something that, I don't know, maybe is counter to it and says, you should, stay with the masks. Do we follow, would we be obligated to follow the Board of Health?
So it's my understanding that the Board of Health would not be able to make a regulation that would supersede the governor's orders.
Okay.
Karen, could I just add to that? Because I actually did a lot of research on that this afternoon.
Okay.
From what I know. So the Board of Health is going to make recommendations in line with the fact that the governor is not requiring a mandate. But unlike the executive order, which is law, the Board of Health is going to be providing recommendations assuming the districts are going to be mask optional. So the executive order is a law that we were required to abide by, while the Board of Health decisions are more so recommendations.
Okay.
So the discussion happening between during the governor's message today was that Board of Health in the next few weeks, they're just going to be making recommendations as to how to best protect everybody, assuming that it is mask optional. They are not going to go against what the governor said. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not going to be mandated on us to agree with those Board of Health directives, although, we tend to strongly consider them when they're made.
Well, in our policy meeting, I pointed out that I am very risk averse. So my personal tendency would be to stay masked. I mean, that's my own personal thing. In listening to what parents have said, not only tonight, but in various emails that we've received, and looking at how our faculty, our staff has responded, I would say I would go for and suggest with the policy that we do make masks optional once the mandate sunsets, but I want to have a proviso in there. It's, you know, what we're going to keep coming back to it, so what if things change? You know, all of a sudden, and I hate to say it, you know, a new variant, and, you know, it's all, you know, the scales go up again. Yeah, I guess we'd have to have something in there about, you know, the guidance that we would follow. That's the only thing that I can think of. But I would go for mask optional at effective, you know, March 8th or March 7th.
Okay. Danielle?
I wrote something, so if that's okay.
Go for it.
I would support Dr. Mucci and the administration and letting it sunset March 7th. Be it so making it mask optional for the students and the families. You know, I really believe we need to make this very important step in giving our kids a normalcy. You know, studies have shown the correct guidance should be that of optional for the well-being of the child, and this would not leave behind families who choose to mask. It has been shown that one-way masking with the right mask, like N95s, KN95s, is effective for the individual. So we have vaccines, you know, for 5 and up. We've updated our HVAC. We have the cleaning crews that come in and do the deep clean. We have other mitigating measures that we've taken place. And I do want to mention that I do want to say, this is very important, certain measures should not continue which create an inequality amongst our children, such as placing partitions or desk shields for the unmasked child. This is not inclusivity. So also in returning to normal classroom activities, circle time, things like this. If the child's unmasked, we still need to move forward. We can't have these types of provisions in place. As the governor, you know, said today, this is about a return to normalcy for our children, normalcy. And that's really it. That's all I have. So I would support you and just leaving it alone.
Aaron?
I support moving forward with the mask optional as well. I think, Karen, to your point about, you know, what could happen in the future, and I also think Kim, you stated it well. We don't know what really tomorrow will bring, or 6 months from now. This was an unprecedented situation. No one would have ever predicted this. But I think that back, like when we were in remote learning and the district pivoted, we had a situation with the 5th grade class. My daughter happens to be in 5th grade. We had a week of remote learning for 5th grade, and the district responded to a situation. So we didn't return to remote learning for everyone. I would hope that that we continue to do that as a district, that we look at the information at hand, we speak to the many people I know you consult with who are experts, and we make decisions based on information in the moment. I have 2 quick questions. Number 1, just that, do we have to do anything to allow optional masks? Okay, because I do think there are families who may feel like they would like to wear a mask. And also, just to clarify, we have that test to stay program, and then the situation with the 5-day quarantine or the 10-day. Like if a child chooses to come back on day 6, I believe, you know, with the masks being required, I don't know if we need to put something in place for that or not. But and with the test to stay, if they're exposed and they're testing to stay, and are those 2 situations where the parent would be choosing, the family would be choosing to attend school but wear a mask? I don't know.
That's a great question. So one of the things under test to stay is that when you come back in a period where you're testing negative but you could still be contagious, you're required to mask. So I have to tell you the truth, I hadn't really thought about that, but based on everything I've read, you would have to mask on days 6 to 10 if you were coming back under the test to stay program. And I think that's separate and apart from the executive order.
And it would be a choice. You could also choose to stay
stay
home
home.
if you wanted
Yeah.
to. And that's the same if you're not doing test to stay, but if you're choosing between a 5-day quarantine and a 10-day quarantine, until of course the quarantines change, and then All right, yeah, then I do support it, but I just wanted to check that those were still in place so that the public is clear. Although it'll be, we're looking at mask optional, if that's where the board goes. In those two situations, if you choose to come to school, there will be a mask for those 4 days.
Yeah, because and the reason I would say that is when people opt into the Test to Stay program, they're opting in to adhering to the provisions of that policy, which are masking indoors when, until you're done with the infectious period and testing to stay negative and come in.
I will also say quickly, when you were discussing earlier, Dr. Mucci, how we may have issues with quarantine because we're removing the masks and now maybe we're close contacts. I am appreciative of the district putting the test to stay in place. Hopefully that might mitigate it for families who opt in. So if you happen to be exposed because you're not wearing a mask, you have the option of the test to stay.
Yes, we're
yeah.
hopeful that we can get that off, but
that.
it would
I
also be, good, because everything is a balancing act. So in answer to your question, right now, we have 125 people who have opted in to Test to Stay, and my guess would be that that number would increase if we went to the mask optional process, and that would just be more for us to manage.
Yeah.
In terms of how many people might be likely to test in a week would be more when there's more people in the program.
Tom?
Thank you. First of all, I think, I'd like to thank the gentleman and the lady who spoke from the audience today. Got us all a little upset, but thank you. It's been difficult having to listen to people or read some emails. Sorry, I'm upset. Tough year. We all had one. And thank you for acknowledging the fact that we had to do what we had to do, not what we wanted to do. If we had a choice of what we wanted to do, well, the world would be perfect and there would be lollipops instead of grass outside, but it's not. That being said, we're talking about this particular policy, 5141.10, and it talks about the Executive Order 251 and 253. It talks about the Delta variant, and perhaps the Delta variant should be stricken and just speak of COVID and its variants, because what's next, the Zebulon variant? I don't know. That's housekeeping. As for people needing to wear face masks, hopefully March 7th or 8th, whichever the true date is, the sooner the better, if you ask me, that face masks in schools are no longer necessary. I agree with my colleagues that anyone who wants to wear one should be allowed to wear one. Some of the teachers and staff responded that they think people should wear masks till the end of the school year, regardless of whatever the governor says. And I think that they have their right to feel that way. And if they choose to feel that way and they choose to wear a mask, they should be allowed to wear a mask. And I would say that if anybody says to any staff member, teacher, or child, oh, you're wearing a mask, you're something, 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 that person needs to be admonished. And whatever the punishment's going to be, it should be meted out. But as for this, this is a document that hopefully we will never have to see again. And that's what I've got to say about it.
Alex?
Thank you, Kim. So I do want to begin this, hopefully I'll keep it concise and pithy, but I do want to begin this by kind of acknowledging the very painful and difficult 2-year period that we all endured in disagreement, in collective frustration. And I do applaud our 2 representatives from the community who came and shared their opinions with us. We value it almost as if you were one of us sitting here and voting, truthfully. There's so many different experiences that we all bring into this conversation. Nobody quite endured this the same way, yet we all collectively suffered one way or another. I'm not a rosy-colored optimist, and I'm not a pessimist. I always try to look at the reality of the situation and try to make the most informed and best decision in front of us. And that leads me to this conclusion that I'm about to land the plane on. I applaud the governor in making the decision to remove this mandate because I think we've arrived at that point in time. But what we also know is that this virus, like any other condition, has its surprises. We can't predict the future. We don't always know what's going to happen. You know, Karen alluded to the fact that she's risk averse. You know, we all have different temperaments when it comes to risk calculation. You know, I do this professionally, so I understand the trade-off between cost and risk, and that there's no 100% guarantee to avoid risk, and there's a lot of recklessness in living in a way that disregards risk as a reality. I applaud the removal of the mandate, and I think March 7th sounds like as good a date as any, especially under the conditions that we're currently in. But we have 3 different school buildings and 3 different populations that were presented with data with, right? We have Central that has 60% vaccination. 67%. Millington, which is at 60%, and Gillette, which serves a population of mixed children, some that are eligible for vaccines and some who are not. And that school, during the most recent wave, had a surge of COVID cases. Now, the optimists will look at that and say, well, that means that there's more of them who are now temporarily immune from getting COVID. But the reality also paints the picture that the reason they experienced that surge, more so than the other schools, is because you have a population that hasn't been vaccinated. Vaccination happens to be the most effective way to avoid serious illness. And I think we're all collectively blessed, right, that we have had the opportunity to experience COVID with a huge surge in the community at a time when many of us had the benefit of being vaccinated, and also at a time where the variant that we were exposed to was particularly mild. It doesn't discount the fact that, you know, under some counts, more than 900,000 Americans have died from it, and that for a period of time, especially during 2020, this was a scary and unknown entity that we were dealing with. I had kind of hinted to this in an email that I circulated to the superintendent earlier. I do think in taking a more small c conservative approach to this, we should honor the removal of the mandate when it comes to Millington and Central, but take a little bit more of a tempered approach when it comes to Gillette. And I don't know if it's practical necessarily to differentiate that way, but I think the availability of the vaccine to a portion, but not all, of the students in Gillette, the fact that it's a much smaller vaccinated rate among those students, and also it gives us a moment. It gives us 2-3 weeks to evaluate what unmasking actually does within our community so that we could kind of be more agile and respond to that. This doesn't have to be a dramatic, you know, V-Day victory. and it's not necessarily, you know, throwing in the towel and saying we're going to be masked forever. But, you know, this has been a really long, difficult, challenging period for all of us. And I think a more gradual, you know, transition out of it might be the most prudent way of kind of doing it. I understand the fact that probably a third of this town had COVID in December. You know, and I think that mixing that with an assumed 50% vaccination rate is probably the reason we're going to have a really easy and helpful period until the spring, and hopefully this is all over. But for some of the parents who haven't had the choice or the option to vaccinate their preschoolers who are in that school. That I weigh equally with the parents who want to choose not to wear a mask. And I still view masks as being, for most people, the least restrictive, cheapest way to go about putting up some sort of defense. I hope that wasn't too long-winded. I am grateful for being able to serve in this position and to serve this awesome community. I just think, you know, if I'm going to be honest, I think that is a small compromise in the kind of, you know, gradual transition into hopefully a maskless future for the rest of my lifetime.
So I want to just confirm, so you were saying, okay, for Central and Millington and, you know, do something different and gradual in Gillette?
I think based on what data we have available, the reality that children under 5, half of which are in, you know, that's half of the population at Gillette, I think that's what makes the most sense to me. You know, let the kids in Central and Millington, those who've been vaccinated for months, those who've already built up their own immunities from exposure, you know, that's 2/3 of our student population. Let the mask mandate end for us to have an optional policy for those 2 schools, and for the now slightly more vulnerable population at Gillette, we continue the requirement that they wear masks until we know more at the next meeting, whether that's in March or April. Let's see how unmasking 2/3 of our students plays out. Let's see what the
We're not
Department
going
of
to
Health
unmask
has.
until
I'm sorry?
March 7th, right?
March 8th.
March 8th, sorry. So we're not going to know by then.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, let's see what happens after 2 or 3 weeks of, you know, maskless operation of 2 schools. And let the youngest students who happen to be, you know, 40% vaccinated, you know, give them a few more weeks. I want to return to normal too. I don't want to have to wear this at a meeting. I don't want to have to wear this in public. I get it. But it's another 3 or 4 weeks maybe. Who knows?
Okay, Melissa?
Sorry, I've
That's
taken
okay.
up too much time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I watched the governor's address today, and I actually went back and I looked at our minutes from when this all started. And I read that executive order again. And I think we're in very, very different circumstances now than we were in August of 2021. First, in August of 2021, obviously, as I briefly mentioned before, there was an executive order. There was the Delta variant that we had seen for the first time, which was much more transmissible than what we had seen. Children under 12 were not yet able to be vaccinated. And we were still in the throes of a very uncertain time. Since then, children under 12 are able to be vaccinated beginning March 1st, which the governor cited as part of his reason for beginning this in March. Children from 6 months to 5 years old will be eligible to begin receiving vaccinations under emergency use with Pfizer. And despite the vaccination rates, I am not a doctor. I am not here to say how I feel about vaccinations, but I think that is a factor that we can consider, not a dispositive factor, because I am someone who was vaccinated 3 times and suffered through COVID. And I'm a COVID long hauler, and I was vaccinated 3 times. So now, had we not abided by that executive order, there would have been significant repercussions that as a district we would have had to endure. First of all, as Board of Education members, under state statute, we are required to uphold the law, and the executive order is a law. As Board of Education members at that time, with the executive order being in place, ethically, we are required to ensure that our district is abiding by the law. Had we failed to do that, the executive order allowed for it to be punishable by a misdemeanor or a petty offense. And is that a petty offense? I'm a lawyer and I can't remember. Yes. And also, the state would have been allowed to withhold our funding, and the county treasurer would have been capable of telling our town to withhold funding to the school. If you look at 2020 and 2021, our state aid at that, or what we were receiving from the state towards our budget, was $800,000 at a time that we had to determine whether we should be abiding by the executive order, which then again, we really had no choice but to abide by it. Our 2021-2022 budget was increasing by 15% from around $800,000 to $900,000. So at that time, with it being an executive order, what I'm trying to say and remind people of is we were risking a lot by not abiding by an executive order. So it is no longer an executive order. And with that said, the Department of Health is going to be issuing recommendations consistent with the governor's decision not to require masks. That we are not allowed to ban masks based on the governor's decision today. And also based on the governor's decision, we have to support, and our district has to support those parents and those parents who want to send their children to school wearing masks, and those children who will be coming to school wearing masks. And our district has to bear in mind that we have to have certain practices in place that significantly punish those individuals who bully or intimidate parents of children, or most importantly, children who do come to school wearing masks. So to the parents who want their children to wear masks, by all means, we, and I know our administration, will ensure that those children should come to school without worrying about being picked on or anything else, because we are required as a district to ensure that that does not happen. But for those children and those parents who want to send their kids to school without a mask, we should also support that, because we finally have a choice as a board in this. And if we have a choice, then we should support the parents' choices as well. The New Jersey, the union today, the teachers union, came out and also supported this. I do believe that we're discussing all of this testing to stay now, but I believe with this mandate being lifted, we will actually see a big difference in what we will be required or recommended to do as far as a district when it comes to testing requirements. So again, we have a choice, and I think we should leave that choice to the parents.
Hello. I first want to say that for parents and staff that are really against discontinuing this, I have a lot of compassion for them, because this is hard. This is always going to be hard. It would be hard if we did it 6 months ago. It'll be hard if we have to do it 6 months from now, because this is not, like you said, a V-Day victory and it's over. It's gradual, and it's hard to know what exactly is the right thing to do. So first and foremost, I really think it's important to acknowledge that no matter what we decide tonight, someone's going to be unhappy. And having those feelings are valid. I acknowledge them, and I just want that to be said. At the same time, all along, we have had the discussion that we were following the state rule and the state mandate, and that was what was based on our decisions. Whenever a parent came in and spoke to us, and they said, we don't want our child to wear masks, and we said, the state rule was that we have to wear masks. I don't feel comfortable moving the goalpost. The state says we don't have to wear masks. I'm comfortable with that. I understand the concerns, But everyone here has said, we're not sure about this, we're not sure about that. I'm sure of what the state said. And so we can quibble and we can do all of that, but my belief is that if there are greater concerns, the state will issue guidance in the future. I'm not in the industry or of the business of being a health director. I'm not an expert. None of us are experts here. I think we need to leave the decisions to the powers that be that have more information, that are we have scientists that advise the state, we have doctors that advise the state, and that is where the state is coming from. Respectfully to everyone on the board, I don't feel comfortable us making a decision on that level. I understand that, our situation is different than in other parts of the state, but it becomes a nuance that I don't think as a governing body, I'm comfortable with making that type of decision. So as far as I'm concerned, the decision should be up to parents. We now know that the parents that have children that need to wear masks, there are masks available that protect them better than the masks that most people are wearing now. And if we need to issue guidance in the future, if we need to, upon hearing, new rules about what's going to happen if a person is not wearing a mask, and we have to add nuance to this rule, so be it done in the future. But right now, based on the information we have, I don't think we have any choice but to accept the state's guidance. So, thank you.
I kind of just want to clarify that the state's guidance is that the district gets to decide what to do. So just so we know that the state guidance isn't not to wear masks. It's to allow districts to do what they want to do. But thanks everybody for your comments. I mean, I just have a couple of things that I noted in doing my own research. Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware have also lifted, or they're going to shortly lift the masking requirements for schools, and Connecticut may well be on its way. Massachusetts, though, requires that a district be 80% vaccinated, both students and staff. There was an article today in the New York Times that said an average of 78 New Jersey residents died each day from COVID in the last week, and that contributes to a daily national death toll of 2,600, a per capita rate that far exceeds those of other wealthy nations. In that same article, there was a reference to a report released Friday by the CDC, which held that people who reported always wearing a mask indoors in public were less likely to test positive for the virus. And the CDC also continues to recommend that children 2 and older wear masks at school and in daycare in a report published in September, and it found evidence that masks help prevent in-school transmission. There's an article today in the Washington Post that stated advocates for children with disabilities say masks are critical to protecting their children, some of whom cannot safely wear masks themselves. And the American Academy of Pediatrics said Monday that its guidance recommending universal masking in schools has not changed. So we spoke of some experts, and I think those are some of the experts. But given that, we do have a policy, and we do need to provide some guidance on what we should do. One of the things that was brought up twice, and I guess Dr. Mucci, I wanted you to comment, is around the sort of, I know we're using bullying and we're not necessarily using an illegal term, but what do we foresee in terms of protections in that space?
Obviously, the district will be vigilant in any case, but one of the things that I would use as an example to sort of show the culture and climate in the building is our students do not need to require when they're at recess, when they're out of doors. Yet we have many families that choose to instruct their children, or children who choose on their own to remain masked when they're outdoors, and they have the option of taking them off. And I am proud to say that we have never had an issue with our parents with children engaging in a less structured environment. So at a time where you really tend to see behavior or snide comments coming out when we're out of view of maybe the strict supervision in the class. And we spent a lot of time at the beginning of the year and throughout the year talking to classes and educating them about families make choices for different reasons, and that it's not our job to be concerned with other people's choices when it comes to health and privacy. I feel like we're in good stead there, but of course, one of the things that's beneficial is having a few weeks to let this sort of digest with families, make decisions, and also give us time as administrators and educators and all faculty and staff to talk to our students about what's going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks and just reiterate those messages from the beginning of the year. Does that answer the question? It's a lot of conversation, I guess, is the answer. And we have very accepting and students that really get along well together and do respect those choices. I don't foresee it as a problem, but I'm not saying that there wouldn't be an issue here or there, but if it were, it would be dealt with appropriately.
Okay. The other thing, I think, does anybody have any comments in support of Alex's approach, which is to sort of a layered approach where Central and Millington would be mask optional beginning March 8th, but then we would, Gillette would not be mask optional, and we would kind of use that as a pilot to see how things went, and then make a decision in April or May.
I just want to ask a question. For Gillette, and it showed the vaccine rate, is that 40% of the entire population of Gillette, or 40% of those who are eligible to get vaccinated?
So it's a good question. It's 40% of the entire population, and if we were to look at the percent of the population in Gillette School that could be vaccinated, the number goes to 45%
Okay,
of the age eligible.
okay.
So hypothetically, may I add, if those who wish to vaccinate their children who are 6 months and older, effective March 1st, there would be a several-week period, even if you got it on March 1st, before that vaccination would actually take, clinical effect,
That's correct.
right?
Probably 5 weeks.
And, I'm sorry?
I think it'd be
5 or
5
6
weeks,
weeks, yeah.
right? Yeah, at least.
So hypothetically speaking, what I'm basing my recommendation on is the fact that that population is 50% less vaccinated than the other two schools, and that they would need a little bit more lead time in order to catch up on what has been called herd immunity, or whatever you want to call it. But at least that would give us a little bit more sight into how our community responds to unmasking 2/3 of our population in school. It's not an arbitrary date like the end of the year. I don't think that would be necessary. But a few more weeks, I think, would be prudent.
So essentially, Kim, is what you're asking is there a motion to draft a policy incorporating Alex's suggestion?
Well, that'd be more of regulation.
Well, because what
Right.
I might be misunderstanding this, but I saw this conversation as, are we going to do anything are we going to be modifying the policy, the existing policy? And I think that's what we're deciding to do right now. So
Yeah, it
are we
sounds
going
to
to be
me-
taking a vote?
Well, it sounds to me like, so far, people are mask optional, and there might be some caveats to that. So I'm trying to see if we have support for any of the caveats.
Well, right now, if you just take it off, like I said, it's gonna
No, you can't, I'm sorry.
sunset, then it's all right, like the caveat. But I wanted to ask though, so if we're implementing the policy, would that come into a regulation versus the policy?
So I think that the face masking policy as written could be drafted in such a way to accommodate the recommendation that Mr. Jajamos is making in writing. I think we could do that. So it's a fair point that if that's the will of the board, that we would then as a committee go back and write in that provision that just simply describing it in 2 or 3 sentences as stated, which is when the executive order sunsets on March 8th, Central and Millington School will be mask optional, and you could either choose a defined date for Gillette School, 5
Yes.
weeks from there.
Yeah.
But that would be within the power of the board, what the desire of the board is. We wouldn't have to write a separate regulation for it. It could be
Okay.
dealt with within the policy.
Okay.
I have two comments based on that. Aside from Gillette School, the other two schools, we're not asking who is or who is not vaccinated. And everybody will be able to be mask-free, optionally. Well, actually, they'd be free of the mask. They could wear it if they like. Play on words, but that's okay. In Gillette, you were saying that the children who would like to be mask-free must get the vaccination, where you're not putting that on the older children.
It's not what the,
You're saying that everybody needs to wear the mask.
what I'm
for-
suggesting is as the board sets its policy, now
Mhm.
that the mandate is gonna be removed,
Mhm.
effective March 7th or 8th, that the board policy be that Gillette remain a mask-required environment for a period of time to be determined to allow that younger population, if the parents elect, to vaccinate their children. Because half of that population is not yet eligible to receive a vaccine. Yeah, so it would.
I don't think
we
it's
would-
half the population.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And wait, can you guys,
Representative?
okay, just let him talk?
I think it's a slow.
And one thing, one fact issue that I don't know, I know that there are different requirements for preschools and childcare facilities than there are in schools. But we're technically offering pre-K education in that school. So you might have two different policies that you need to abide by in that building anyway.
So that's actually a fair point, and it's been a big issue that has come up with preschool.
Yeah.
Because whenever the Department of Health issues guidelines, they issue guidelines exclusively for K-12 schools, and then they issue a second set of guidelines for childcare centers and early learning. So there is often conversation about what guidelines should preschools in public schools follow. Should they follow the K-12 or should they follow the childcare rules? And often the childcare rules tend to be, believe it or not, even more stringent than public schools. So yes, there could foreseeably be, when this, in the next coming weeks, when the Department of Health comes out, there could foreseeably be some regulations that are pushed for preschools or medically fragile populations. We don't know that yet. But that could be something that could come down the pike, and there is precedent for that with a number of the things that are going on. So another example to illustrate your point would be quarantine lengths, which were not reduced in the same way in early childhood settings and preschool settings that they were for K-12.
So I don't mean to overcomplicate this for everyone, but these are legitimate concerns
Mhm.
that.
My second point, I guess, was, and whoever knows better, please let me know. I thought that COVID and/or the Omicron variant right now is less, I'd say this word, deadly for children than it is for the elderly and the critical care.
Well, wait, I'm sorry, Ann has something next, and I just want to make sure we're staying on the policy and what we're going to say in the policy. So go ahead, Ann.
I was just going to clarify, and at this point in the school year, could we assume that most kindergartners are 5, and that the children who are not eligible for the vaccine right now would be our preschool population?
I think that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. So our kindergartners and our first graders have been eligible for the vaccine, and our preschoolers will be eligible, Melissa said, on March 1st. I just wanted to, just my own.
Because then, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to adapt or adjust or change, not change, but make it preschool, maybe in Gillette, they should have the masks, and then K-1 be optional.
Can I say something?
So,
Can I say
I'm
something?
sorry, let me let Melissa go, because she had a comment.
just to, because we were talking about child care providers before, just to make it clear that Governor Murphy today did make it mask optional for public schools and private child care providers too. So it's across the board that he made that announcement, because that executive order applied even to private child care providers as well. But I'm just going, because I know everyone feels very differently. I'm just going to quickly say that I support the allowing it to sunset without any caveat.
Okay. Danielle?
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's so many studies that say how detrimental it is for children under 6. We have the who says that children under 6 should not be masked. The EU, Australia, Denmark, Sweden, none of them have ever masked their children in schools.
So it sounds to me like if there's a motion, Alex, that you want to make, we can see what the temperature is.
I'll make the motion to differentiate the policy to allow Millington and Central to follow the governor's mask removal policy change, but to further evaluate the requirements for Gillette and continue our mask requirement for that period of time. Call it a month or two. And to further explore that in the policy committee in order to draft that.
I don't know if we need any further.
Is there a second for that? Okay. The only other thing I want to, again, I think still mask optional sounds like the majority, but Karen, you had brought up around following guidance or health department. I assume we could put some boilerplate language that we have to follow these regulations and rules that we're at least required to follow. So I think that the policy committee would draft something that would incorporate that.
Well, the way
I think we have that in our general policy, yeah.
That's the way it is now. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah, under health and, that would come under health and safety, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
But we
pending
have
government.
to, this policy still has to be revised.
No, it
No,
just
no.
falls off the books.
Yeah.
So then how do we allow kids to wear face masks then? How do we make it optional?
I don't think you need to write a policy for that. I think it's just a choice.
We could put out a note to the parents. I mean,
Yeah.
Go under dress code, I don't know if.
or we could put,
The Friday blast?
Yeah.
yeah, or, you know, we could add the 3 or 4 or 5 words, or, you know, a sentence that says now after it sunsets, you know.
I think we have other general policies that address the fact that the administration could make recommendations. I mean, I'll double check, but I'm almost sure we have another policy that says that they can make any recommendations as to any type of,
Yeah, but the subject is now.
this one falls off.
That becomes optional. Do we assume, the policy is now, right, everything sunsets, you don't have to wear a mask. Do we assume that everybody knows, well, I can wear a mask if I want? I don't know if we could assume that.
Well, and
But we
also,
should be able to, actually. People would do that. I
But
think.
that's what we're essentially instructing our administration to do right now. If we allow it to sunset, we're allowing them to send out a notice to parents saying it's optional.
Okay,
So I think they're waiting on us to make the decision.
okay, yeah.
No problem.
Yep.
And then, you know, following from tonight's conversation, and the same note out to everybody, I'll also note that we'll keep everybody apprised of any updates in the Department of Health regulations in terms of implementing. And if I see anything, or districts note anything that could be questionable, that might cause some changes, we'll share those with the board and the public immediately.
Sounds good.
Okay, all right, thank you, everybody, for your comments. We are in comments from the public. Do we have any comments from the public? Okay. At this point, the Board of Education welcomes.
minute.
Yeah, I have to read it. Comments from any member of the public on any topic. Please note that as per board policy, 11:20, a total of 15 minutes is allocated for public comments at any single board meeting. In order to provide residents the opportunity to comment, individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each at any particular board meeting. The board may extend these time limits at its discretion. Any questions should be directed to the board president during the meeting, and depending upon the nature and complexity of the questions, it may or may not be answered during the meeting by the administration. If so, the response would occur after this public portion of the meeting has concluded. Everyone has the freedom to speak, but please be advised anything said in public may have legal ramifications, and there is no protection regarding statements made by the public. Please state your name and address before you begin.
I did already. I just want to say about Gillette School, just it's not a good idea since the kids are very small, and it's gonna be emotional damage for them. If you wanna like protect them with mask from health, you're gonna harm them other way. You know, like I don't have kids there, but for another parents, I just think it's gonna be more harm because emotional kids know like some people like I'm assuming that have kids in Gillette, in Millington, and another one. He has a mask free, he has a need to wear a mask. And they're much smaller. You need to explain to them and it's much harder. It's just like parenting. Oh no, it's gonna be more harm. That's my feeling, but that's it.
Thank you. Okay, Anne, will you move us into executive session?
The board will enter into private executive session to discuss a harassment, intimidation, and bullying report. No action is anticipated following executive session.
We have a second?
Second.
Thank you.